Here's your host, Alex Garrett.
Hey, I'm Alex Garrett, and it is Terminello's Take for this week. Don't worry, you'll hear from the veterans from the Memorial Day festivities in Little Neck, Douglaston during this week for sure, because Lou, I know you're a patriot as well, and you will always believe in keeping the message alive even after Memorial Day and Veterans Day. That's what we try to do here at this podcast.
Alex, thank you for having me back, and you are 100% right. People don't take the meaning of Memorial Day or in November Veterans Day or even the July 4th holiday. They do not understand what it means. You can ask a lot of people what Memorial Day means, and they have no idea what it means. It's just mind-boggling to me. But everybody who enjoyed this beautiful weekend weather-wise in the New York metropolitan area, down the Jersey Shore, in Connecticut, all over the Northeast, the reason we're able to enjoy it is because Americans gave their life to protect our country, and that's what Memorial Day is all about.
And it was fun to have some playoff hockey and an NBA basketball. And I got to ask you, maybe we should have Tim Kirchin on to tell us the exact mileage between FAU and Miami. But the energy in Florida, there's something in the water down there. I think of Ponce de Leon's Fountain of Youth. They've just found a fountain of winning down in Florida, right? I mean,
they sure have found the fountain of winning. That's a very good way of putting it. They have here we are. You have the Miami Heat and the Florida Panthers, both in the finals of their respective leagues. I was watching a little bit of the night that the Panthers clinched their series. I was watching local Miami TV on my computer, and they opened the first 15 minutes of the newscast was all Florida Panthers. That's obviously not a traditional hockey market. It's a hockey market that's been around, since the mid-'90s, and they haven't caught on as far as popularity, but something like this could put them over the top. They have a beautiful arena. They do. And the Miami market really has taken to them. And obviously they've taken to the Heat. This is going to be the Heat's seventh time going to the NBA Finals, I think. And I think Spoelstra's gone to 5 of them.
I was gonna say, all right, brag on Spoelstra. I know you've been high on him since, they became the 7th-8 seed that knocked off the Knicks. You've been pretty high on him this whole playoff. So go ahead and tell us more about why
Eric Spoelstra's dad was formerly my boss in the mid-'90s when Eric Spoelstra was playing guard for the University of Portland. Ironically, Eric Spoelstra was guarding Hank Gathers when Hank Gathers had that heart event and went into cardiac arrest and died on the floor. Eric Spoelstra in the West Coast Conference tournament was guarding him, and Hank Gathers fell to his death on the court right in front of Eric Spoelstra. But Eric Spoelstra's worked his way up, from video coordinator in 1995 to where he is today, by far and away the best coach in the NBA. And I'm going to be honest with you. I thought they were done after that heartbreaking loss. You couldn't lose a game in a more heartbreaking fashion when you think you have clinched a series, and that putback by White gave the Celtics a chance to win Game 7. I watched the post-game press conference, and he was very confident. Never said, well, we can't do this. Never said that, it's a needle in a haystack situation. We're going to go up there. We're going to play our best, and we're going to. He didn't make it a guarantee like a Joe Namath guarantee, but he basically said, we're going to win. We're going to. He exudes confidence in his team, and after the first quarter last night, they really controlled the game. The Celtics showed last night what they've shown the last couple of months: inconsistency. They did a very nice job against the Sixers in the previous series, down 3-2, winning Game 6 in Philly, and then Game 7 at home. And and they did a nice job coming back from down 3-0 to the Heat. The Heat really were dominant for 3 games, and basically through half of the game 4, and then the Celtics. It looked like the Celtics had turned the tide, and it looked like the better roster, which the Celtics were going to win last night. It's not so much that they lost, the Celtics, last night, but they came out. They were 0 for 12 from 3. They probably relied on a 3-point shot way too much. Their offense was scrambly and not very cohesive. Their defense, like we talked about last week, their defense structure is poor. And once Miami, who was really off the first 8-10 minutes of the first quarter, once they got into rhythm, they ran some back doors, they ran some pick and rolls. They took the closest got after they got up to 52-41 at the half was 8 points. You really have to give it. You got to give it to the Heat for keeping their poise. The Heat are mentally tough. They play hard. They play smart. With about 4 minutes to go in a game, it was a 23-point lead. The Celtics score 6 points, knock it down to 17. 3:42 left. Spoelstra calls timeout. A lot of coaches would just let their players play. He called timeout. Even though there was no chance they were going to blow that lead, he called timeout. He's involved in every possession. And, it's really a credit to them that they beat Milwaukee. They beat the Knicks. They beat the Celtics. And now they're going to play the Denver Nuggets, and they are not favored to beat them. They're heavy underdogs. But I don't think that they're going to roll over and play dead. I can tell you that much. But the new NBA philosophy, Alex, the new NBA philosophy of shooting threes bit the Celtics in the butt. I mean, they had a 3-point mindset. The Heat didn't. They took threes, don't get me wrong. And they got great performances from Caleb Martin, who could have been the MVP of the conference final. Jimmy Butler won it, and I would give it to him because he's Jimmy Butler and the team feeds off him. But last night he shot 12 for 28. But they get contributions from so many guys. Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Kyle Lowry, 37 years old. I mean, basically, I don't want to say on his last legs because that's not fair, but he's had a lot of injuries in his career. He gives him that veteran presence. They are truly a team. They have a deeper roster than the Nuggets going in. Nuggets only play 7 players, but I don't think it's going to be an easy series. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, like they'll use Kevin Love, who we saw a lot in the Knicks series, and he was a contributor, throwing those outlet passes and hitting threes. We didn't see him in this series because they didn't match up well. I think we'll see Kevin Love in the next series also.
Max Strus actually is a Big East name, is he not?
Yes, he is. He was an outstanding Big East player at DePaul. He was an outstanding player on a bad DePaul team, and a guy that you did not think was going to be starting for a team that won the Eastern Conference Championship. But he is, and he's a contributor. I mean, he hit that one shot last night where Adebayo knocked the ball over to him, and all in one motion, Strus threw a 3 in. They have a very, very good team. They're very confident. They're not afraid, and that all comes from the coach. And let's face it, you got the guy above you in Pat Riley. They're all connected. Players.
Tell you what's also interesting is that this team is the first team to go from 8 to now the final since the 1999 Knicks. I mean, and of course they knocked out the 2023 Knicks. It's all kind of a symbiosis, if you will.
Yeah, it is, because if you remember in 1999, the Knicks, the 8th seed, had a last-second shot in Game 5 in Miami that bounced around the rim by Allen Houston and fell through to eliminate the number 1 seed Heat. So there is a lot of symbolic irony there.
And then on the other side, I still believe that Jokic and the Nuggets have an advantage, not just because they were number 1 in the conference, but it's Jokic. It's a team led by Nikola Jokic, and I don't know. I feel like it'll be another David versus Goliath, height wise for sure, because he does look a bit like Goliath when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean they are heavy underdogs, and obviously Nikola Jokic is probably the best all-around player in the NBA right now. I would say so. As I've said many times, he should have won MVP again this year. But Murray's a terrific player. They have Aaron Gordon, who's going to give them trouble. They only play 7 guys. Bruce Brown and Jeff Green come off the bench. I don't know if they have anybody else that they're going to earmark who didn't play in the Lakers series. But is the 9 days going to show that they're a little rusty? I don't know. For Miami to pick them off, probably one of these first 2 games would be advantageous if they're going to pick them off. I mean, I remember when we beat Detroit, when the Nets beat Detroit in 2003, we were off for 10 days. And then we played San Antonio in the final. And for the first 2.5 quarters, we were totally out of sync. We played better the rest of the game. We cut into the lead. We didn't win, but we did win Game 2 in San Antonio, came back 1-1. So again, it's all how you handle that delay. Is it good? Does it help you get refreshed? There's 2 schools of thought on that, and I don't know which one's right.
Well, I definitely think that both hockey and NBA, there's something about the fresh legs that is much needed. I mean, I know it's a little more in hockey, but I feel like it's that, and maybe having gone till Monday, they have that momentum in the fresh legs, or though maybe not. I don't know. We'll see how this works out. Obviously, the Nuggets have had a longer time out, which gives them time to practice, but they haven't had real game experience now for over a week. So we'll see how that affects them. Now, I mentioned hockey because once again, the Golden Knights are in the Stanley Cup, and this time around, they are facing a Panther team that wasn't even a certainty to make it here. So I would say the Knights have that experience and maybe even that bit of advantage heading into the final, right?
Well, the Vegas Golden Knights, 6 years in the league. They've gone to the conference final 4 of those 6 years. This is their second trip to the Stanley Cup final. There's still 6 members of the original team that went to the final that first year, which is remarkable. And in 2017, 2018, before they lost to the Washington Capitals, this should be a good series. I mean, this is going to be Florida. They're both good forechecking teams, but Florida lives on their forechecking to create offensive opportunities. Vegas has an excellent defensive team, and it's going to be the forechecking against the Vegas defensemen and forwards coming out of the zone. Sergei Bobrovsky right now, along with Matthew Tkachuk of the Panthers, are the 2 leading candidates for the Conn Smythe Trophy for playoff MVP. But it's going to be very interesting to see which one imposes their will. And last night, Vegas imposed their will on Dallas from the beginning. I thought Dallas was going to win the series going into the series. I thought Florida was going to beat Carolina, so I got half right. But this is a series that's going to be very interesting. Vegas has gone to the finals with 5 goaltenders who have played over 10 games. That's very unusual. When you have that kind of goaltending, what should I say? You don't have that one guy who plays 60 games. And you're just going with different goalies throughout the season. That is something that is unusual. But Aiden Hill's now their goalie. He's playing very well, but they've gone through a bunch of goalies. None of them are as good as Sergei Bobrovsky on the Panthers. Bob, as they like to call him, is, like I said, he's been remarkable. He's great athletic goaltender. He goes post to post. He's got great reflexes. It's going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to this series.
Well, let me ask you this, because I tell you what, I feel like these two teams are going to have, like, the game day ops guys should stick around and be ready to stick around for about 12 overtimes, okay? Because these teams have gone to overtime back-to-back nights in their respective series, and they're just going to compete for more than 60 minutes. I think we're going to see a couple overtime games, judging by what we saw in the conference finals. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I would agree. They're going to be tightly contested. One shot from the point deflecting off a defenseman's skate or something could make the difference. But the games are going to be that tightly contested, and I agree with you. I think we'll see an overtime game or two. Now, with the exception of that one real long overtime game that ended at 1:56 in the morning, most of the overtime games have been short. At least 4 or 5 have been within the first 3 minutes. And I love overtime. Like people were saying that, they should do something. Games shouldn't go to 1:56 in the morning. No, that's the beauty of Stanley Cup hockey. It's survive and advance. And you just see how these players give up their body, soul, how mentally tough they are. I love this. So I hope they never change the overtime rule for postseason in the NHL.
Lou, I don't think we had this little Terminello's take last postseason, so I never got to ask you this. The handshake line is just something that is always exciting and very traditional. And how do these guys, when they're done beating each other up, beating the crap out of each other, still have that sportsmanship at the end of the day? I mean, have you ever seen any nasty lines that are really just not the bad blood you could see it? I've never seen
any nasty lines. I've seen some players who do not go on the line. Islander goaltender Billy Smith, in a day where you could ram the goalie and there was, there really wasn't a lot of penalties like they call. Now you could just be in the blue and they'll call a penalty on you. Billy Smith only shook the hand of the opposing goaltender and he went to the locker room. And he was criticized for it many times, but he said, I'm getting the crap kicked out of me. And, that's it. I'm going inside. So he would just go to the goalie, his opposition goaltender, and then he'd go in. And there were other players who wouldn't do it in back in the day. Nowadays, you really don't see that. But you got to remember, in those days, in the 70s and the 80s, and even into the mid-90s, the fighting rules weren't as stringent. So we basically don't see the fights that we saw in the 70s, like with the Broad Street Bullies or teams like that, or the Bruins of the late 60s and early 70s. You just don't see you don't see those premeditated fights like you saw in the 60s and 70s. The NHL has done a great job of cutting down on that. Now, I think all fighting should be abolished because they say, well, nobody gets hurt in a hockey fight. Well, that is not true, especially with the NHL trying to control concussions. But again, to
the point where I've seen them literally have referees just skate in there to break up any start of a fight. I mean, what I remember seeing is these not brawls, but like these two guys tussle on the ground, beating the crud out of each other. Now you don't see that because the refs actually step in just as it's percolating, which is just something different. And I don't get used to that. I never do because I'm used to the fight and the hockey, I got to say.
Well, remember that up until about 20 years ago, there was bench clearing brawls, entire bench. Once something started on the ice and got a little out of hand, then all 20 players would come off the bench and fight each other. I mean, I was at a couple of those games in person, which looking back now is hard to believe that actually happened. I mean, it really is.
You mean you're not going to see anybody at TD Garden just climbing the steps on their skates like Esposito and those guys did against the Rangers?
I was at the Garden. It wasn't at TD Garden. It was at Madison Square. December 23rd, 1979. I was there with my buddy. And we had great seats at the Garden. And it happened right to the right of me where Peter McNabb and Milbury and a couple of the other Bruins climbed the glass, which was shorter in those days, climbed the glass because a couple of guys in suits, Alex, leaned over and tried to grab some of the Bruins players' sticks. And then Milbury, obviously the famous Milbury, climbing over the glass and taking the guy's shoe off.
Wrongly fired by NBC. Can I just say that right here? It's kind of an opinionated thing. Wrongly fired by NBC, but we won't go there.
Yes, he was wrongly fired by NBC. You are 100% correct.
But no, it's just, you don't see that. You don't see the slap shot kind of mentality as much. And we've talked about it before where these guys rely on their body to make the money. So that's why they don't do it anymore, because they know they got to stay healthy if they want to get paid.
For sure. Absolutely. You're 100% correct. But this should be a good series. And obviously, you got guys on both sides, which are fascinating players. Obviously, Jack Eichel, who was drafted behind Connor McDavid. This is the first time he's ever made the playoffs because he was on those Buffalo teams for 6 years that haven't made the playoffs. Actually, they're the longest running team in the NHL. They've gone 12 years without making the playoffs, but Eichel's in. He's the leading scorer so far in the postseason. He is also in the running for Conn Smythe as playoff MVP. He came back.
But why does he seem so buried? And he doesn't seem as highlighted as McDavid or any of these other guys.
He does not, and I think. Well, first of all, McDavid's the best player in the world, and by miles. And McDavid is flashy and effective. He has moves. He's the fastest skater in the league. He's a great passer. He's a great shooter. Eichel is a very good player. He's one of the top players in the league, American-born. I'm sure if there's ever an Olympic team again where NHL players are going to participate, he'll be a part of the United States team. He's soft-spoken. So is McDavid. But I think that this final, we'll see what happens with this final. I mean, he has he's a leading scorer in the playoffs so far, and he knows what this means. What this means to him. I mean, okay, he could win a Stanley Cup before Connor McDavid. Think about that. That's
no, especially with the way he left Buffalo. It was very much like Tavares going to. Although he was traded, the mentality was very gruff against Buffalo. The way he left there, it was a mess. It was not an easy divorce, that's for sure.
It was not an easy divorce. Tavares was the traditional free agent leaving. The fans were more upset. I think, and I know I've said this before, if Lou Lamoriello was there earlier instead of 2 weeks before the free agency started, I think Tavares would have been re-signed, or they would have traded him before the trade deadline. And that was a mistake the Islanders made. They didn't get a definite commitment from him because they could have gotten a boatload back at that time if they had traded him. But and Islander fans were upset. I mean, you look at the 2 years the Islanders went to the Stanley Cup semifinals, in the Final Four 2 years in a row. And if Tavares was still there, he could have been the difference maker, either one or both of those years. So, so divorces are never easy when it comes to players leaving their longtime teams. But it should be an interesting series. I'm looking forward to it. I'll give you a couple of guys that I'm looking at. Both excellent players. William Karlsson for the Vegas Golden Knights. I don't want to say unsung hero. I'll put him as he might be one of the unsung heroes coming up in the series. I expect him to have an impact on the series. And for the Florida Panthers, actually a player who was drafted by the Rangers and has bounced around the league, Anthony Duclair. He's had a couple of goals in the playoffs. Watch out for him. Just a couple of guys I'm throwing out there besides the regular stars that I think.
Right, and I still think it's Marchessault's team just because I know him very well. I know he's been all over the place for the Golden Knights. All right, one last thing about last night, which was really, really warming, is that even though they lost, the Stars fan base was waving their towels even as the buzzer sounded. I thought, man, this fan base is loyal to the Dallas Stars, and it's a football town there, but it's kind of cool to see hockey having that mark also.
I agree. You know, back when Minnesota, when NHL lost the Minnesota North Stars and they moved to Dallas and they became the Dallas Stars, people say, why are you moving from a hockey state to a warm weather site? Well, it's paid off. Dallas has been a great franchise for them, and Minnesota's back in the league. They got an expansion team a couple of years later with the Wild. But yes, the fans are very loyal. They sell out 99% of the games, and the ones they miss are only by a couple of hundred. They do have a loyal fan base. The fans, I was watching last night, the fans gave them a nice ovation. I mean, let's face it, everybody thought there was going to be a game 7. I did. You know, if I was a betting man, I thought that Dallas would force a game 7. I did not think that the game was going to be over 10 minutes into the first period, but the fans did a great job. They sounded as a team left the ice. Dallas has this great loud goal horn, and they played it. So it was nice, but doesn't get them to the Stanley Cup final. But Dallas has a lot of players in their farm system that are going to come up, and they still have a good team. But like I said, yes, all that did not get them to the Stanley Cup final. So what can you do?
All right. Well, you know, you mentioned a little bit of timeliness earlier on, and my other topic today is about baseball and this survey, which I sent you, which said 42% more might actually be coming back to the ballpark just because of the timing. I mean, did you take a close look at that?
I did.
I
did take a close look. Now, I love baseball. I love all sports, as you know. I'm a big fan of the pitch clock. You know, I think that the pitch clock has sped up the game. Not that I want to be sitting for 3 hours or 3.5 hours and get bored. I think the pitch clock has been an asset. I don't know why anybody would vote against it. I guess there was some other questions they asked. Does the pitch clock, and Alex, just jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they say, did the pitch clock spur you to come to a game, or are you going to come to a game this year? I'm coming to a game anyway, whether there's a pitch clock or not. But I guess about half, what was it, 45% or so said they would.
And that plan was thanks to, I believe, gaming.com. But it's funny, some of these betting sites have all these statistics, I guess, because of the betting itself. But 30% have left the game because it was taking too long. 39% of fans, which is kind of discouraging, have called the game boring. And see, this is because they don't.
You see, I don't agree with that. With that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Alex. But I don't think baseball's boring. I don't.
No, neither of us do. But there's a faction that I think MLB still has to win over. And I know that they're doing the pitch clock to win that faction back. And actually, I think it's also the faction of kids. Like the Memorial Day pastimes, I think the pastime of baseball is trying to bring back the kids, because a lot of kids are on their phone. And of course, now these spacious stadiums, you literally could just walk around the ballpark with your friends, not even care about the bases loaded situation. And that kind of is sad in a way, you know?
Alex, you're 100% right. It's sad. Are you coming to the baseball park to walk around the stadium, or are you going to watch a game? When you have players, when you have great players, like look what Aaron Judge did last night in Seattle. 2 home runs. He stole a home run. I mean, come on, that's exciting. You can go right through the league. It's exciting. I don't understand. I know every sport doesn't float everyone's boat, but baseball is still a terrific sport. Yeah, it may not be the most popular sport like it was when I was 25 years old or 30 years old, but it's a great sport. I just don't understand. I do prefer the faster game. I do prefer that they have it under control, but I like all the rules for the most part, except that stupid runner at second base to start the 10th inning.
By the way, breaking news, Aaron Hicks is officially an Oriole. Okay, here's my other question, because a lot of interleague's been happening. The Yankees played the Padres. What to you is the difference between both leagues if they both have the DH? I'm trying to figure it out. I still think the American League has a bit of a stronger hold on the game. I can't explain why, but I think they do. And what I mean by that is they just have stronger players, it seems like. But with the DH in both leagues, what makes them different?
There really isn't any, Alex. We're coming to the point where there's no difference. And it might seem like the American League has some strong teams. I don't know, but the American League East is very strong. The American League Central is terrible. And obviously the Oakland A's are on their way to might be historically losing 120 games. But what's going to happen is, and we've talked about this a little bit before in the past. It's all a setup to have radical realignment. That's what it is. It's going to happen. If this doesn't happen, Alex, I really will be surprised. I mean, they're going to put the Mets and the Yankees in the same division, which I don't like. I don't know. I think they're going to wait to after expansion, after they take care of this Oakland A's situation. If they do really move to Vegas, for some reason, Major League Baseball is going to move, instead of taking care of a problem with the A's in Oakland, they're going to move them from the 6th biggest market in the country to the 40th biggest market in the country. Is that the right thing to do? I don't know. But after they take care of the A's moving, and they're going to add a couple of teams, there's no doubt in my mind, maybe Nashville, and I think Nashville for sure lock in as one of the teams, new cities. I don't know if it'll be Montreal. I don't know if it'll be Salt Lake City. I don't know if it'll be Charlotte. And they got to take care of the Tampa Stadium situation. Once that's done in the next 4 or 5 years, I am telling you, there's going to be no more American and National League. The sport that lived by tradition, that thrived on tradition, has totally blown up tradition. They will totally blow it up, which I am not a fan of. I mean, you're going to see the Pirates and the Reds and the Tigers and the Indians in one division. It's going to be all screwed up.
It's sad that Oakland says they're the 9-time world champion, but they're not acting like a championship team at all. They're not even acting like they're there for the fans anymore, which is just, I think, the most heartbreaking part of it is they're not even in it for the fans. And those are the guys that were there in the 70s, I mean, it's just.
Well, the fans suffer the most, Alex. We suffer the most as fans. And even though we've been in the business and we're in the media and sports business, we're still fans. We suffer just like any other fan. But the Oakland A's have been in Oakland since 1968. I mean, there's no reason for Oakland, and obviously you got to drag the politics in here, where the leaders of Oakland have lost the A's. They're going to lose the A's in all likelihood, barring a miracle. They lost one of the most iconic franchises in NFL history, a brand that made the NFL what it is, the Oakland Raiders. They lost the Warriors, but that's only across the bridge, and it's like the Nets moving from the Meadowlands to Brooklyn. So okay, that's not bad, but then I'm telling you, they'll never get another professional team, Oakland, after the A's leave. They won't.
Here's my worry, Lou, and even for myself, it's like, well, okay, what will be the motivation to watch baseball if they start realizing, oh, wow, they're just kind of the same kind of format, both leagues. There's nothing different here. I mean, is baseball going to lose its charm if there's no difference?
Oh, I think they'll lose. I think they're going to lose their charm. They'll lose some. Yes, absolutely. But young people who will start watching baseball, they will have no connection to the past. Alex, when you can go back to the 60s and 70s and the 50s, the only time the American League and National League met on the field, besides the World Series, was one night a year when the stars of stars, met at the All-Star game. Those All-Star games meant something. It wasn't like the exhibition nonsense it is now. It meant something. It meant something to win. Willie Mays and Pete Rose never thought they were going to lose the All-Star game. They wouldn't. And at one point, the National League won 19 out of 20. Those games were pulsating. You'll never see that again, Alex. You'll never see it again.
Well, I think the one thing.
Okay. I mean, what's going to happen? Well, when they put all these teams, realign all these teams, what are you going to have? The Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference in baseball? I mean, come on.
That's just a scary thought. All right, one last thing, because we'll get to Aaron Judge and Alonso later in another episode, because I think they're heating up in their own ways and home run after home run. We got to get to that down the road. But on this thought, I just want to say, baseball will only have its allure if the Yankees are coming to town. I know that's a reason why they're going to more National League teams. Realignment or not, the Yankees are always a draw no matter where they go. And they might single-handedly keep this league alive with their appeal no matter what city they go to.
Well, I mean, you got the Yankees, you got the Dodgers, you got the national teams, all the big city teams that are definitely going to make a difference. But you're only as strong as your weakest link, and that's where baseball is dropping it. Their weakest link, Oakland, Tampa, not on the field, but in the stands. The Marlins, with their stadium is only 10 years old. They got those weak links have to be stronger.
And the Marlins have tried over the years, I know that, but they also got rid of their big core back in the day, which ended up, staying on the Yankees. Yeah, Yelich, just an MVP on the Brewers and Ozuna. So
no, I mean that's a knock on the game. That's a knock on baseball. There's no doubt about it.
Well, Lou, this has been special, and also we should congratulate Liam Hendriks. I know he had a rough first half, but come on. Baseball aside, he beat cancer and was back on the field last night. How cool was that to see?
Well, that's very cool. And, he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which in my family, my brothers had it twice. My cousins, it's hereditary on my mother's side. My aunt had it. Two of my cousins had it. And my brother had it twice. So I can sympathize with what Liam Hendriks went through, because all my relatives, including my brother, was on chemotherapy, and it's not fun. And the fact that he's pitching 45 days after his chemotherapy sessions were done was pretty courageous on his part. So I wish him the best of luck. And ironically, during the off season, the Mets and the White Sox had talked about a potential deal to get Liam Hendriks. So the Mets are looking to build up their bullpen, which, as we'll talk as the summer goes along, something that the Edwin Diaz injury is going to affect their depth as the season goes on. But we'll see. But God bless Liam Hendriks he did a nice job last. I know he gave him a couple of runs, but Hendriks, that was just to get back on the mound. I'm sure he'll be fine.
Life is bigger than baseball, and those type of moments are also why baseball is going to thrive, even if Manfred tries to slowly kill it. Anyway. Lou, thank you so much, sir, and we will talk to you soon.
Alex, thank you.
This has been the Alex Garrett Sports Spotlight with Lou Terminello and Terminello's Take. Thank you, Lou.